Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Thomas H. Johnson volume, and we turn now to poem 717, The Beggar Lad Dies Early. Now, we've commented on the fact that Emily in 137 of her poems mentions death, but what makes this poem so significant is that many people have said Emily lived in her cloistered little middle class, maybe upper middle class world in Amherst, and she never saw the real world. She never saw the world of pain. And in a poem like this, we will label Emily as one of the great social justice warriors of her time. Oh no, she saw the pain. She knew it well. How? We're not sure. But it is clear in a poem like this that she saw what economic depravity looks and feels like. Now, in many ways, we're going to come back to Blake's Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience, and his classic, The Chimney Sweeper, and we'll finish our lecture maybe by making that connection. Our assumptions, I think you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily's our playlist. I'm hopeful that you worked through our set of introductory comments, where we said in that introductory comments that Emily, as her contemporary Walt Whitman said it, contains multitudes. It isn't so easy. So, for example, you can't just say Emily is a product of her upper middle class upbringing, and in that regards, she doesn't understand the pain and suffering of the world. This poem will prove otherwise. Absolutely prove otherwise. Okay. I'm also hopeful that you've already worked through the preceding 716 poems. We just finished with 716, The Day Undressed Herself. And can we just point out that if you just finish that poem study with me, and you come to this poem study with me, you will identify the radical difference between these two poems. In the one, she's making some risque burlesque comments about sunsets. Here, she'll make a very direct statement about what is it like to be a child and to be poor, impoverished, living on the streets, begging for sustenance, and then, because of that, to die early. Now, we've already commented on the fact that Emily was very influenced by Charles Dickens, the great novelist. And so it won't surprise us that this is a Dickinsonian kind of poem in that regards. Back to the issues of some economic deprivation. The beggar lad dies early. It's somewhat in the cold and somewhat in the trudging feet and happily in the world, the cruel, smiling, bowing world that took its cambric way, nor heard the timid cry for bread, sweet lady, charity. Among redeemed children, if trudging feet may stand, the barefoot time forgotten sow, the sleet, the bitter wind, the childish hands that teased for pence, lifted adoring then to him whom never ragged coat did supplicate in vain. Now, anyone that has seen true deprivation, we obviously think when we go to third world countries and we see children who are in tremendous need, begging for their sustenance, can't help but think of a poem like this. Notice the poem has two parts: the child and what the child went through, and of course its death, and then the postulate of an afterlife, where the child is in heaven with God, right? And so we'll be playing a very interesting game between the two. Let's exegete as we go. Start, notice, with the word lad. And of course, lad is capitalized, beggar is capitalized. The beggar lad dies early. Now, let's just put this in our notes. In what ways do disenfranchised, economically deprived children die early? Well, we know that in terms of statistics. That is not even debatable. But think about the death before the death. And that is, I think, a lot of what Emily is trying to understand here. Children die who are impoverished and living on the streets long before they ever physically die. Their spirit dies, their soul dies, their desires, their hopes die. Notice, the beggar lad, dash, dies early, dash. Notice her use of somewhat, and that has made some argue the tone of this is much like William Blake's Songs of Innocence, Chimney Sweeper. It's somewhat in the cold and somewhat in the trudging feet, and happily, it's an interesting word, in the world, and then she'll just say it. The cruel, dash, smiling, dash, bowing world, dash. We don't see it. She says we don't see it. Because we see it all the time, she says we don't see it. It took It's cambric way, that is to say that fine white linen. One scholar has pointed out, this is the way that the beggar lad saw the world. He saw it as something he could never have, never aspire to. It was way beyond his grip. Cambric being used here. Brilliant word. Nor heard the world, never heard the cry for, notice in quotation marks, bread or sweet lady charity. Right. In other words, we know they're there. We can't help but think of Swift's Modest Proposal, right? We know they're there, but we just don't see them anymore, these children, these disenfranchised. Then the poem breaks, and then we realize, oh, this is after the child has died, but notice she doesn't call it death, she calls it redeemed. In other words, the thing that a child in this situation would long for is redemption, i.e. death, i.e. escape, to get out of this terrible, horrific situation. Among redeemed children, if trudging feet may stand, the barefoot time forgotten. I think this is the key word of the poem, because it cuts in both ways. We have forgotten the youth, the poor beggar youth, and the child, when dead, will have forgotten, hopefully. But notice forgotten dash so. It's interesting, this use of the word so. So what? Well, what is forgotten? The sleet, the bitter wind, the childish hands that teased for pence. This use of the word childish is compelling. You'll remember it in 103 and 257 and 348. Do you remember it from 77? 576 and 584 we saw childish again. 77 is so compelling. I never hear the word escape without a quicker blood, sudden expectation, a flying attitude. I never hear of prisons broad by soldiers battered down, but I tug childish at my bars only to fail again. This idea of childish and the childish hands. In other words, can we put it in our notes? This is the innocence that we're really focusing on this poem. The innocence, the childish hands that teased, longed, begged for pence. Lifted, now these hands, adoring, dash, then dash, to him whom never ragged coat did supplicate in vain. In other words, reunited back with Christ. Well, I think at 2a, our argument is the worst deprivation is, of course, for children. And we have a tendency to forget that. She doesn't want us to forget. At 2b, though, many have read this poem as a darkly ironic poem. Of course, the question, the theodicy question, the fifth of our big five is, if there is a God or Jesus that welcomes these poor children in an afterlife, where was this God or Jesus when these children were living on the streets in the sleet and the rain and the deprivation and the suffering? It's the theodicy question on this. At 3a, well, we mentioned Dickens, we mentioned Swift. I can't help but think, though, that she was channeling much of William Blake's Songs of Innocence, published in 1789, Songs of Experience, published in 1794. And as we've said at learnstrong.net, we've given lectures on this poem. 2 times he wrote a poem called Chimney Sweeper. The first one in Songs of Innocence. When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me, while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, 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 weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's a little Tom Darcer who cried when his head that curled like a lamb's back was shaved. So I said, hush, Tom, never mind it. For when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair. And so he was quiet. And that very night, as Tom was asleeping, he had such a sight that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key. And he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain leaping, laughing, they run and wash in a river and shine in the sun. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom, if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. And so Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark and got with our bags and our brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm. So if all do their duty, they need not fear harm. I've given a full lecture on this, Songs of Innocence, and the powerful argument that's being made in that one. Songs of Experience also has the chimney sweep. A little black thing among the snow, crying weep, weep in notes of woe. Where are thy father and mother? Say, they're both gone up to the church to pray. Because I was happy upon the heath and smiled among the winter snow, they clothed me in the cloths of death and taught me to sing the notes of woe. And because I'm happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury and are gone to praise God and his priest and king. who made up a heaven of our misery. Some of Blake's most damning attacks, of course, will have to do with the deprivation of children. Finally, in 3B, what do you think can be done for all of the children of the world who are ragged and unfortunately forgotten? I hope Emily's challenging you. Thank you.